I've called this message out of this passage, Exodus 3, about verses 6 through 15, the eyes of God. Now, not those organs that you see with, but that personal pronoun, the eyes, I apostrophe S, the eyes of God. There are several of those here, and I want us to look at them because I think there's some good instruction and help and just good principles here. And the first one is called the eye of introduction. And let's just start there and read for a few verses, starting at verse 6. Now this is where Moses was at the burning bush, and he approaches, and then God speaks to him. And he says in verse 6, he said also, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. You ever noticed in the Bible where every time God shows up in full presence, people don't just start shouting and jumping around? No, there's a holy hush, see? So he's scared. He's hiding his face. Just a point there. Verse 7. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I am aware of their sufferings. So there's the personal pronoun, I have come down to deliver them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them up from the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, I thought when I read this again here a few weeks ago, I thought, all these vegans and different people wanting to stay away from eggs and bacon and milk. Well, it must not be bad for you. The Lord wouldn't have been saying he was going to lead them to a land of milk and what? Honey. All right, like both of those. Chocolate milk especially. I don't know. I guess he could have said chocolate milk, but maybe it hadn't been invented yet. All right, they didn't find any brown grass for those cows to eat. It was just green grass, and they were given that white milk. All right? And he was said, I'll lead you to a spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Amorite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusites. And maybe that's where we got the word termite from, all those people. I don't know. Verse 9. Now, behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come to me. Furthermore, there's that personal pronoun again, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. Therefore, come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, so that you may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the sons of Israel out of Egypt? And he said, certainly I will be with you, and this shall be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain. Interesting sign, but there it is. We'll talk maybe more about that in a little bit. Verse 13, then Moses said to God, behold, I am going to the sons of Israel, and I will say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. Now, they may say to me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. That's pretty interesting. All right? Some of you, well, let's see. I'm looking at these students, so we got homeschool people here, but I used to go to the office and you could say, my teacher sent me. Well, who's your teacher? And you give a name. Can you imagine arriving to an office or somewhere? Who sent you here? I am who I am. That's an interesting answer, but that's what God said to tell him right here. I am who I am. And he said thus, you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God furthermore said to Moses, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. And the original is the word Jehovah. Jehovah. This is my name forever. And this is my memorial name to all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I am indeed concerned about you. I am indeed concerned about you and what has been done to you in Egypt. So I said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, Perizzite, Hivite, and Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. Kind of like down the road there, that dairy. Pure, real milk. You can get the real thing, and not homogenized, not boiled, not messed up. All right, but the real pure milk, we're going to have that, he said. Verse 18, they will pay heed to what you say, and you with the elders of Israel will come to the king of Egypt. You will say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. So now, please let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. All right, we're going to stop there. Read a couple of verses further than I had intended. But let's look back at the eyes of God. We just read, I think, all that I'm going to point out. The first one was, again, in verse 6. I'm calling this the eye of introduction. I am the God of, and he starts naming off, okay, I'm your daddy's God, I'm your granddaddy's God, I'm your great-granddaddy's God, your great-great, and he goes on and starts naming all these people that were their ancestors, they're the patriarchs. He starts naming all these people. And it's interesting that he introduces himself this way, because I think the point here is that God will let you know who he is when he arrives. You'll know when the presence of God is there. Am I right? I mean, I can remember coming to this church years ago, and I was carried and brought to church before I could walk, but I remember 2 years of age, things that I just know I was hearing and God speaking to me. I mean, I just know when God was there, when he was speaking to me. And as I grew older, I still knew it was God speaking to me. God does not have to let me know, look, I'm the God of your father, I'm the God, Here he does this, but I think he's making a point through all this for us today, that God lets you know who he is when he comes. When God arrives on the scene, you know it's him. No question. He reveals his identity. You know who it is. It's never a mystery who's arrived when God shows up. Amen? You always know. Anybody ever confused? Well, is this God? Is this, who? Is this my neighbor down the street? Or is this somebody else talking? It's never a mystery. You ever thought, I just don't know. It sounds like God and kind of feels like God. I've never wrestled with that. Have you? We always know. Here, he lets Moses know, look, this is me. It is Jehovah, the I am, all right? I remember this story one time. This little boy didn't want to go to school, so he gets on the phone and he calls the school office and he said, I'm just letting you know Johnny is not going to be at school today. And the teacher said, or the lady there on the reception said, oh, he's not? Well, is he sick? No, ma'am, he just won't be at school today. And then the lady asked the little boy, well, who is this? He said, this is my daddy speaking. Dead giveaway, right? This is my daddy speaking. She knew it wasn't his daddy speaking. And when God shows up, you don't have to wrestle with wondering if it's God or not. He always, just like he made it clear to Moses who he was, he makes his identity clear to us when he shows up. It's clear who he is when he shows up. And I've thought about this many times, and I may run into one at some point. I have never, maybe you have, me personally, I've never met an Alzheimer's patient who had lost all memory of who relatives and anybody was, that did not know who God was. Never had it happen. I've been to Alzheimer's patients, and they just didn't know family anymore. They didn't know, used to know me, they didn't know who I was, and I started talking, well, you remember who the Lord is? Yeah, I know who he is. And later I got thinking, Christ said, Paul, didn't he make a statement, I've forsaken all that I might, know him. Just want to know him. Thought, that may not be such a bad thing to be able to forget everything and all you know is God, Alzheimer's could be a blessing. Just depends on how you look at it. I know that if they still know God, it's easy to start worrying about loved ones when they get into situations that to us look bad. But God said, I'm not going to leave you, right? If they belong to Him, He says, I'm right there. He always is with us, and we know who He is. And I believe until we take that last breath, when we may have forgotten everything, everybody, we're going to still, I believe, know who He is. So, the eyes of introduction, the eye of introduction. Now, let's look at the eyes of care. The eyes of care. God knew what was going on with these people. Look at verse 7. He says, I have surely seen. See? I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. He saw it then. He sees it today. You're going through something tough today, and I hope God knows. I need to let Him know what's going on. You ever felt that way? I've got to give Him a report. No, you don't. He already sees it. He knows all about it. He knows it. He's seen it all. He sees it all. Nothing that's, listen, He can see at nighttime just as good as He can at daytime. That's how good He sees. You can't hide from Him. I remember Joshua asked me when he was a little boy. He said, something like, he was about 4 or 5, and let me see if I can remember how this questioning went. You know how little kids can ask questions. He said, is God everywhere? And I said, yeah. We were in the kitchen. Well, is He in the pots and pans? I said, well, if you get in there, He'll be right there. That was the best answer I could give. But He sees it all. When you go through affliction, He knows about it. Now, affliction is not a good word. If you don't know what affliction means, it's the same thing as when you're going through bad stuff, all right? It's when you're going through tough times, when things aren't fun anymore, when it's painful, when it's boring maybe, when it's just, I don't like this. You lost your comfort zone. This is uncomfortable. I don't like this. God sees it. I have surely seen. Look what He says in verse 7, the last part. I am aware of their sufferings. He knew, He saw, He was aware. Now, there's other verses in the Bible that use a Hebrew word that means intelligently aware. He's intelligently aware. Somebody was trying to ask me about a situation not long ago where there was some suffering going on, and I had to say, I am not 100% aware. I don't have 100% knowledge of all this going on. God does. He knows what you're going through. He knows what caused it. He knows what the outcome's going to be. He knows if you're going to pray about it or not. He knows if you're going to trust Him or not. He knows. He's aware of every bit of it. The eyes of care. I have seen, I am aware, but look at verse 8. He says, because of this, so I have come. I have come down to deliver. Well, that's two good words. Come and deliver. I have come, I'm going to deliver. Why? Because He's seen, He's aware. He's a caring God. So don't ever think, God don't care about me. Oh, yes, He does. Things may not happen on your timetable, but He's totally aware. Now, because He's got things set up, He still wants you to come to Him. He may hold out on doing things until you ask Him. So always go to Him, but realize He is aware. He's got eyes of care. Now look at the next part. He also has eyes of instruction, or commanding eyes, some people may want to say. Look at verse 10. Come now, and I will send you to Pharaoh, talking to Moses, that you, Moses, may bring my people, the sons of Israel, out of Egypt. Now, interesting. God knows all this stuff, but He chooses Moses to go and do the delivering. When God gives a command, when God has an eye of command for you, sends you, it's probably more than just about you or I, if He tells me to do something. Most of the time, in fact, I think it's going to be more than just about you. Okay? It's more likely that there's someone else or something else involved in what you're going through, and then God sending you to be a part of the answer to somebody's prayer, or a help to someone, or following an instruction from God is the point we're making. Moses' command was not just about Moses. It had more to do with others. It was about them. It wasn't about him, small letter him. If God hadn't delivered these people, if they had all been killed, the promised Messiah, which was to come through the offspring of Abraham, there wouldn't be any offspring for Jesus to come about through, see? So it was more than just about the people of Israel. Their deliverance had to be done to preserve the family and lineage for the coming Messiah. Does that make sense? So see, it was not just about them, but now it's about Him, capital H, the Lord Jesus Christ, the Messiah. It all was part of God's plan, which He had planned out before creation even occurred. God calls people to do things they will never be able to do also without His help. He may call you, but listen, you can't do it by yourself. Most of the time if He calls you, just like Moses, he didn't have the wisdom. He didn't have the knowledge needed to do this task. He didn't have the power. He didn't have the influence. But God decided to use him. God, I thought about this, and you see if you agree with me. God could have delivered these people all by Himself. He could have just wiped all those wicked Egyptians out and left all of Israel right there all by themselves. And I think about things like that. God, why did you do it this way? Why did you just wipe them out? Well, He could have if He wanted to. That just wasn't His plan. So He could have done it without Moses, but He chose to do it with Moses. Most of the time, if He calls you to do something, He can do it without you. He just likes to work through His people. You see that time and time again through the Bible. Think about Gideon, Moses, think about Daniel, think about all these people, Elijah, Elisha, all these prophets, all these people that worked miracles. He could have did it without them, but He liked working through His people. So don't be surprised if at some point in your life God calls you to do something that's going to be just big and you're thinking, how am I going to do that? Well, it's not about you. It's all about Him. He loves mutual participation. God loves mutual participation. Now, leads us to the final section here. Helpful eyes. Look at verse 12. He says, I will be with you. Now, why did He say this? Well, Moses was getting concerned here. I'm supposed to go deliver this bunch of people. There's about 1 million of them or more, God. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the sons of Israel out? And God says, I will certainly be with you. I'm going to help you through this. God will call you to do something bigger than you are that you won't be able to do. I remember when I first started leading music, I was scared slapped to death in this old church back when I was a teenager. First sermon I preached, I was scared to death at the age of 14. I am going to do this, And it wasn't the greatest when I started out. I got sharper as I went, still need to improve. As the old saying goes, if you're green, you grow. If you're ripe, you rot. So just stay green, right? Keep growing, keep improving. If you're green, you grow. But if you're right, you're right. So stay green, stay learning, continue to be a person that has a teachable spirit. Keep learning, keep growing. Well, Moses was willing, he was scared, and God used him. And God will use you to do things that you'll think, man, I don't know. Remember that sign? What was it in verse 11 or wherever it was? This will be the sign. You worship God in this mountain. I got thinking about that. Moses went through a lot when he was delivering these people. It didn't just happen overnight. It took some time. But when they finally made it through that Red Sea, and they thought they were going to lose their life, here come the soldiers, and God performs that miracle. They go through. Of course, he did other miracles while they were there, trying to get away, and things were tough, and there were just all kind of stuff. If you'll read the story, and you'll see, and maybe we'll get to go through some of it. But when he finally arrived back into the land that he was at right now, in this call, in this conversation, I know when he got to that mountain, it must have thought, well, I'd be doggone. I'm here. There's the mountain. We worshiping. Yep, he did it. He did it. He said he was going to do it. Yeah, man, I don't want to go through that again. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad he used me. But yeah, it had to have been him, because I'm standing right here. We worshiping just like he said it was, see? But why? Because he was there, and God told Moses, this is going to be the sign. This is how you're going to know that it's I that brought you through. And I know when he got there, he had to have been thinking that. But if God calls you to something, he'll help you. He'll help you with every bit of it. And look, here's another one. Oh, that sign was in verse 12. And in verse 13, here's the other helpful eye of God here in verse 13. This again, in response to a question. Actually, Moses has said, look, I'm going to the sons of Israel. I'll say to them, the God of the fathers of your fathers has sent me. And they say, which God? What is his name? There's all kind of gods. There's Pharaoh's God, and there's this God. There's Baal. There's the Asherah and all this stuff. What am I going to say? He said, you tell them, I am who I am. I am has sent me. It's interesting that he didn't say, you are who you are. You tell them, you are who you are. He didn't even say, don't go. He didn't say, go tell them I was who I was. See? Or not, I will be who I will be. I am. God's always concerned about the present right now. It's always I am. Not about what I did yesterday. It's what I can still do today. I am has sent you. See? God's always concerned about right now. You can't do anything about yesterday. It's already gone. You can't do anything about tomorrow. It hadn't arrived yet. Right now is the only time you and I can do anything. And right now is when God says he's ready, he's able, he's powerful enough. I am has sent you. And remember, when he helps us, it's not just about us. It's more about others. It's more about Jesus. All this is supposed to point others to Jesus. It's supposed to pave the way for Christ. And all that we go through, we should be examples for Jesus, pointing others through Jesus to Jesus. Let's stand together and pray.